Hey everyone, I'm Tish Hicks. I'm the Master Sensei of the VO Dojo in Burbank, California. This is Ask the Sensei, a free webinar that we do once a month. We are a full training center, so wherever you are in your journey, we can help you get to where you want to be. Dan, you want to give yourself a little introduction?
Sure. I'm Dan Lenard, voice actor and the home studio master. If you have questions about how to properly record home voiceover studio audio, please contact me. And if you have any questions right now would be a great time to put them in the chat room because I know the answer.
And Dan is our techno sensei for the dojo. So everyone who is part of the dojo has access and is in connection and learning from Dan as part of their process. So. And Jeffrey Umberger, as I live and breathe.
For the time being, apparently.
So happy you can join us. Can you give us a little introduction to you?
Yes, I'm happy to join you guys. Jeffrey Umberger. I own Umberger Agency. We've been open 9 years, almost 10 years now. And before that, I was an agent at People Store, heading up the print and voiceover departments there. And before that, I was in commercial casting. Before that, I was in commercials as an actor. And that's me in a nutshell. So here we are. VO. Woohoo!
VO. Well, we've got some questions queued up, and we're here to answer them. So we'll kind of go with the flow. All right, we've got lots of great people calling from lots of different places. So let's begin with Christy Kate's great question. What makes the Atlanta VO market different from other markets? Like, it's a Passover question.
Yeah, it's sort of, I guess the lines are fading from all regions right now. You know, since it's digital, it's become much more global, thank God. And we have, you know, in our market, we have a pool of fantastic talent, of course, and we're being flooded with additional talent from everyone moving from the West Coast to the East Coast because of our film and TV market here in Atlanta. But, you know, speaking specifically about voiceover, the only real change has been that everyone has access to everyone. And so the Atlanta region is fading its walls. It's a little bit, as well as the other regions. I get work from all regions. I got a job offer today from Oklahoma and one from Seattle. And so there sort of isn't an answer as far as regionality. We still get, I guess you might say, preferences with animation to be done in LA personally, in person still. However, even that is changing too. I mean, we have Turner Studios and Cartoon Network and Boomerang right in our backyard, so we do get a little bit of lead over from that. Turner, things like that. So we're benefiting from being near that, and I think that does make the Atlanta market stand out. We also have Tyler Perry Studios, which is a very active film and TV studio, and they hire VO talent locally to go actually to the studios. They give them a full day rate, even if it's just an elevator operator or a 911 what's your emergency line. They'll still pay you that SAG scale $966 just to pop in and say that line because they like their actors to read right with the VO actor there in person. So I'd say that maybe those couple of items make Atlanta market seem a little different than the others, but really we're losing our regions to just all being accessible nationally, you know, so it's kind of fun.
Yeah, I think, and it's been interesting. It's been interesting to watch the transition and see, you know, from an LA perspective. At first, it's like what, and then you're like, oh wait, guys, this is the way things are going. So how do a lot of what I'm thinking about at the dojo more and more, and noticing and working towards is how are we building bridges so that those things that used to be like hard lines or oh you can't get here from there.
Right.
Or that we get there from here sort of things are like, well, where are you and where's the work and how do we bridge and how are we all together and how does everyone as representatives, how does everyone as talent create this structure that maximizes everything for everyone. Right?
Right, yeah. And there's so many people right now doing voice because because of the ease of it, of at least getting set up. And if they go to Dan and they get their studio set up, and they go to you and they learn all about VO and many facets and training, then they go to me and they get, then it's almost too much. It's almost like you pass by car lots of, new cars, and there's just thousands of cars, and you think, how can all of those get sold? And it's the same with voiceover work. You feel like, how can all those voices get heard? And a lot of those cars don't get sold. They get aftermarketed or given to Hertz as a rental car or whatever it might be. So it's hard to fit us all in now. We're definitely, cream rises to the top, and it's who you know, it's what you find on your own, it's what agencies you have working with you in partnership. That part hasn't changed, the agent partnership, but what has really changed is actors finding their own work. And as long as you protect yourself and know the terms that you should be signing in agreement to, and should know the rate, then hey, more power to you. That's the way of the world. So that's the biggest change right now, is that everyone's got it in their own hands, pretty much, their careers.
Yeah, it's a little bit, well, you're always driving the car, right? As a talent, you're always driving the car. And I always talk about the image of you're always driving the car. Then when it comes time to have your team of representatives, who are you choosing to be your navigator in the back seat? And
your steering voice
to show you the directions, and then also who has the fuel card, right? Oh, yeah, just use that, honey. And who is going where you want to go, right? I think that's another thing.
That partnership is so important. Yep.
Yeah. Good. Let's see. Here's one for all of us, from Martin. What is the percentage of work that you book that requires being in studio versus where a client can do it from home?
Yeah, well, it's become about 80% of the buyers or talent seekers wanting the talent to have their own setup or at their own expense, which I'm fighting against that notion that actors have to come out of pocket for studios right now. I understand the edge that it gives a talent to be able to say, hey, I have my own home studio, there's no charge. However, I want you to also think about the fact that, up to about 5 years ago, well-meaning and well-professional studios were earning a living by having that money come to them to be professional editors and engineers with trained ears and eyes. The money that was spent by the buyer on those engineers or studios is not being passed along to the talent. So you do deserve some of that. And I always request at least there to be some kind of gratis fee that I can pass along, not take an agency fee from, but on my invoice, if I can include $50 for a gratis, thanks for using your equipment fee, I get that very often. So they're not trying to gouge. They just don't have the need for studios, and they're not thinking, oh, well, we're all saving money. So I try to get that back for the talent, because you'll always need a new cord. You'll always need a new piece of equipment. And it's hard to make your own studio. Ask Dan. And so, even $50 to help pay Dan or pay Dojo for help and training, then that's something worth asking for. But yeah, it's getting to become the ask now is more common than not. It's about 80% clients wanting the talent to have their own setup. Yeah,
that's interesting. Do you have any insights in that in terms of that, Dan?
Well, certainly. I mean, you really do have to have a home studio today. Now, what that means can mean a whole lot of different things. Whether it's a closet or you want to invest a tremendous amount of money that you don't need to in, say, a booth or something, unless you're like in the landing pattern to LAX or LaGuardia or something like that. But as someone once told me, you live where you choose to live. But one of the things that I do is I build that price into anything that I do in my studio, which is just about everything. I've told my clients that, look, I mean, you could go hire me to another studio or something, but my audio is better than theirs. It's as simple as that. You want it done right, it's going to come right out of my studio, and you know that because you've heard it, and because I know what it's supposed to sound like. So I build that into the price of what I do with my own rates. That said, in many towns, I'd say if you're not here in LA or New York, you really have to do it at your own studio. And when we're talking about being brought into a studio, we're not talking about some minor e-learning job or even a major e-learning job or an audiobook or something like that. We're talking about, commercials are just this little tiny piece of what's available out there for voice actors. And so I think it's important that you have to have a home studio, because clients are not going to want to put up with having to hire a studio to do something that's fairly lengthy that can be easily done with somebody who's competent with using their own home studio. So
yeah, it's different. And I think having come up in the other paradigm, like the old paradigm, and living in Burbank, which is like the VO capital of the universe, I still find that most of my work is that I'm going to places, but also like hearing the 80% is like, oh, right. Yes. So hopefully that is helpful. I'm finding these 80%, these percentages to be good and interesting questions. Dan, let's see. Well, let's take this one, and then we'll go to the tech question. So Mark asks, there's a lot of advice, podcasts, webinars, etc., from 2+ years ago. I'm wondering if y'all could speak to what you think are the biggest changes that have occurred in the interim regarding building a successful VO business. What is outdated advice you see here most? I think this discussion that we just had is one of the biggest, right?
Right.
That is. Mm-hmm.
Where are you reading the question? What is the question again? I'm sorry, not the whole question, but what is seemingly outdated?
What's changed over the last 2 years? What's applicable? What's outdated? And I think a corollary of that is, how does one keep thinking ahead, right?
Yes.
There's recognizing what was, recognizing what is, and then ideally, how is one thinking ahead, right?
Right. Well, it's hard to tell where this is going to go. We have one element of surprise is AI voices, and we don't know where that's going to go because it's going to just mushroom so quickly. We can't think that fast we can't predict that well about what it will really mean to us. But that's one thing that's going to change, and we just have to remain on top of it, just like we do on everything with voiceover. You consider a digital industry as being changing in the moment every day. So you must put yourself in groups like this that are so important and so active and so on top of things. Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups are great, and your own peer groups in your communities. That's the only way to really stay tapped into what is happening and what will be going on. I feel like there's been such a rush to try to retrofit yourself into the old structure, or like you put it, how you came up to, and I think you should be concentrating on getting representation. You certainly should, but you've also got to put the same effort into finding out how to make your own studio, how to make your own business. Be your own agent. I hate to be an agent saying go be your own agent, but that's the truth of it. And I'm an idiot if I'm sitting here thinking that, it's not where a lot of the buyers are not going through agencies as much because of the pay to play or because of the access to talent digitally. So we're all silly if we're not addressing that. And I have legacy buyers that will never find talent another way, So I'm here for that, and I'm here for new clients. But along with that, we got to be malleable and find out every day what's changed.
Yeah. I think one thing that that I since the heart of the dojo is that voiceover is communication, and communication is an exchange of vibrational energy, right? So at some point, it really is still that exchange of vibrational energy that is where we connect as humans. So even as our job is being the human the human element of a more and more mechanized world, right? So even if that means that we're, reading a book for 10 months to get every variation, so Alexa can tell you every joke that you ask, right? How do we maintain that? And then I think going forward, understand that is what we are bringing, right?
Right. Yeah, that's right. The AI voices is going to take all that out of out of play, depending on where AI goes. But otherwise, we are still communicating and being, forces for and with each other. I love the way you set it up, and I love the nature behind the thought of that, for sure. The only part that's scary is that we'll all be controlled and talked to and booking Siri voices for the rest of our lives. But no, I don't think the personal touch is ever going to go out of it. So I'm confident.
Yeah. And I think like noting like who is thinking ahead, like I follow a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk, who's a entrepreneurial guy who's been all about the, what's disturbing the next thing.
Right.
His focus has been all about the voice. It's us talking to each other. Yeah, Dan.
Well, I'd like to add in here, how do you stay ahead of the trend is by, and Jeffrey will totally agree with me on this, is what makes you different? What is it that's unique about you? We're all entrepreneurs. We're all trying to get our own businesses going. We're trying to find our own clients. When we start making good income, that's when someone like Jeffrey is like, I can help you, because Jeffrey's a good guy and he wants to help us and he also wants to make a living. And so that's really the thing that's going to get you, help you get an agent, is if you learn how to establish yourself really quickly. And on being unique, I once heard somebody say, if everybody's telling me you're doing it wrong, you're probably doing it right. Be different. That's the one thing that people are looking for. Even if it's not right, sometimes if you're doing an audition and you do it completely opposite, but you sound good doing it and you sound convincing, they may not say, well, he didn't get the script, but I heard it and it was different. And can you give me another take on that? So that's a good way to stay ahead, is just to be different.
That's true. I think, I've submitted many auditions that weren't according to specs, but sold something. And it wasn't offensive, that out of it, definitely it's worth the pitch, or worth the effort. And I've even booked, a female when it was a male part. Is you got to think outside the box and think about the story, and you got to know your buyer and your client, and know what's wrong or what's right, and when to do it. But you follow your instincts. But yes, we do have to be very different, and we are by nature. But I think one thing that talent do that I notice that's sort of industry wide is talent, instead of being as individual as they are, go to a safe read of what they feel like the buyers want to hear, or is safe to do. And safe really doesn't book as much as the ones that I put forward that are a little less guarded, or a little more one drink in. I always use that analogy, and for those that don't drink wouldn't know what that is, but it does really mean, when I've coached on the side or filled in for someone that was a coach, I've always said, after the first read, I say, that's great. We have it down. Now let's do another just for fun. And that read is the one that we actually hear on the radio. That's the one that we actually respond to. That's the one where the story comes out despite your guard.
Change, right?
Yeah. It's really fascinating. I love that.
Yeah. I think that's also, in terms of what has changed, we also have to recognize that as volatile and shifting as our industry is, the advertising industry is shifting molecularly on a daily basis as well.
Right.
I recorded a new campaign in New York a couple of weeks ago, and the fantastic producer introduced me to the word permalance. I'm like, what's permalance? She's like, yeah, no, I'm working all the time, but I'm permanently freelance.
Oh.
Oh, interesting. So I think this idea of starting your business and understanding how we are here to be part of all the teams, your team of representation, the team of who's creating the spot, the advertising team that you're becoming a part of. There is no they, there's only we. So those are a lot of riffs on that, Mark. So what's outdated advice? Do it this way. I think it's outdated advice. I think look at who's working. Like see who's posting and things like, hey, I'm doing this and this and this.
Yeah.
What and how are they doing it, right?
Swear at them and then say, I'm going to do this differently from you.
Bless them and step into the tide that's all rising. That's that.
We had a tech question there too from Laura Doman. She says, what's the ideal placement of mic and script to get the best recording sound? I've heard mix up high, down low, straight on, and to the side. Well, it's really a matter of one size doesn't fit all in any situation. Every room is different. Every voice is different. How your voice reacts to your particular mic is different from somebody else. So there's no really one right answer, except to say that proper mic technique, from my experience and working with hundreds of people around the world and going into recording studios, is this is the way you see the mic. Very rarely is it going to be on a desk stand. If you see a mic on a desk stand in a recording studio, it's not a recording studio. It's somebody trying to pretend they're a recording studio. Mic should be upside down. The top of the mic, or at the bottom in this situation, should be right at the bridge of your nose, like that. And your copy should be down and underneath, which gives you the perfect opportunity for an unobstructed view of your copy and the room to gesticulate, which you need to do as a voice actor. And another thing that I don't think a lot of people think about is, by doing this, you don't need a pop screen. And we see pictures of people doing voiceover with pop screens and headphones and going like this, which is complete, utter mythology. Unless you're listening to somebody, you don't need the headphones. And if you've got it set like this, you don't need the pop screen, which is like this huge target there that reminds you that you're on microphone. When in reality, what that pop screen is for is to prevent Celine Dion from spitting on $10,000 microphones. That's really what it's for. So if you've got it set like this, as you can hear, it sounds like I'm in the same room with you. And you do this, you can go Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers all day long, and there are no plosives. And that's the big difference. So proper distance, about 5 to 7 inches, like we say about this one. Hey, dude. And copy down here behind, and you have an unobstructed view, and just be you. And of course, set your levels properly, which is something that I find I need to teach people an awful lot.
Well, Dan, can I ask you about the levels?
Sure.
How much do you charge me to ask that? As far as audition output, is there a decibel that's agreeable?
I think that most engineers, and remember, most guys listening to our auditions are not engineers. Most of them are listening on their iPhone or on their laptop speakers. Mm-hmm. But you don't want them to have to keep putting raising the volume on your audition. You should be recording with an average of about 12 dB and peaking fairly consistently between -6 and -4. -4 being higher than -6. Mm-hmm. You remember your math class at all. And that's really how it should be. And, I had lots of graphics showing how to do that, but I don't want to see little tiny waveforms, because that's how you get really noisy audio. So setting your levels properly is really important. So you have to learn exactly how to use that VU meter.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Good night.
Ding. Great. So I see a couple of questions that we can sort of combine. That basically, I think they can be distilled into how are you personally, Jeffrey, working with people that are not in the Atlanta market? How do you approach that? And then another layer of questions that are, I think, the gist of how to connect with you or reconnect with you. So just basically, how do you approach bringing someone onto your roster? I think would be great, and that regional.
Okay.
How you determine your regional, and then also there's a question here from John that might also fit into this realm of when you do agree to work with someone in another market. I think there's two layers of this question. How do you as talent prioritize your relationship, right? Like
right.
You get things from, and then how do you as an agent prioritize? He's saying that he's had experiences where they were like, yeah, we're working together, and then don't get anything. So that's 75 questions. Go.
I would just say give up.
No.
I think, it's funny. It's funny, as I was about to answer this, I'm remembering that a lot of talent I don't hear back from sometimes too. They kind of follow. Because voiceover in sort of a way is a lot of people's side careers. And so a lot of people that I'm representing, I have a sort of a silent list that I don't quite ever hear back from, but I don't really drop people. And so what's going to happen right now currently is I've got to call my roster down. I have about 100 active men and 100 active women. And within that, you have all the breakdowns of style and sound and age and all that. So that's the comfort zone that casting will receive from me anyway. Otherwise, it becomes Sophie's choice with me. I've sent A and B. I have to let one of my babies go. And another thing that talent might not be aware of currently is the trend of why they may not be hearing from their agent is a couple of things. There is a book called Agenting to Your Agent, and you need to find out from that agent how they like to interact with you or hear from you. Maybe it's just a subject line message only of howdy, whatever it is, so that I see John Bailey's name in the email.
The epic voice.
Or Dan Lenard. And so learn how your particular agent likes to be kept in touch with. Let them know that you've booked something so that you have a conflict out there and they know about that. It also lets them know that you're booking and it reminds them of you. It's not that I have a list that I've forgotten names of, because that's counterproductive. I'm not just a building. We're a business, and it's a partnership full of, it's a building full of partnerships. So I haven't forgotten anybody. There's reasons. Another trend right now, which I'm fighting against also, is buyers are just booking right off demos. And it's good. It means your demo's working for you, but their demo can work against you in some ways where it doesn't showcase some things you might have tried to hide, accents or whatever it might be. So, and then it doesn't really show the buyer that you can take direction or that you have their story. So it's a dangerous trend. It's a lot of the younger advertising, millennial type age people that are saying, hey, just send me a demo, I'll book it. And I've done it a couple of times. I've had a couple of recasts because of it. And it just doesn't give my talent an opportunity to engage and show their wares. And it also sounds like, or feels like to the talent that nothing's happening, so that is probably just a trend, because I think with that practice of it not being as successful as if you actually audition for it, I think it'll stop soon. But in the meantime, it makes me sad that I don't, number one, get to hear how you sound currently, or I don't get to get as many auditions out. So the bookings are going on, but they're booking from other ways. So that's another part of the changing world that you need to know about. But just check in with your agent. As far as me in Atlanta, I have an Atlanta-only pool, so I know who I can send to Tyler Perry Studios if it were that kind of a case. And then aside from that, they're just like my New York talent pool or my LA talent pool. There's literally no difference in the list. I don't have it segregated out for any other way. So my talent roster as a whole is all they're all my children, I guess you might, or all my partners. So there's really no distinction in Atlanta only versus the rest of my roster, only in the jobs where they're looking for me to send only Atlanta talent. I can get jobs from Orlando where they only want Orlando talent as well. So that's the same thing. It's just a matter of who knows me to come to me for talent options. And I'm not taking talent submissions right now, but that changes. And you look on the agency's websites and you find out when they are. And if you do submit and you don't hear anything, submit again in the time frame that they've said that they're willing to see you again. I'm a one-man operation, so if you hit me with it every month, it's going to be tricky to get to you. But once I've called my roster again, I'm going to be opening it back up and want to hear from you, and I will specify for me how it works best, what email to send it to, and when you can expect to hear from me, if at all, or what I'm looking for. And someone asked the question, do you send something different if you're sending something around the second time? And I would always pretty much, send a link to or attach your commercial demo. Start with that. Unless you're just known for great animal voices, you might want to test that as well. I think that might have answered a lot of that, but I probably missed something there.
No, I think that is good. So it sounds like if you're working in another market, just make the connection and see how it goes, right? There's no reason not to.
Not at all. Again, I think the markets is going away as far as it being a conflict of an issue, because I have talent in Atlanta only that are repped with other Atlanta only agencies. Mm-hmm. So if you picture this, we Atlanta agencies that are all in one little place, that's really the whole nation. It's just a smaller version of that. But you need to have a home agent regardless of where you are. I even have people from a major market like LA who have me as their home agent, their preferred agent, the one they pick first. If we all get, let's say, a McDonald's spot, if you have a preferenced agent, it helps take your agents out of the race to get things to you. For one reason or another, they can't always get things to you first. So it takes us out of the race. And it also lets us do our job of making sure terms are agreeable or rates are where they need to be before we put out the audition. Another agency might think that the rates are fine, or they just might put it out and know that they would negotiate it later. And you should pick first come, first serve for that reason. We're working for you, and you should pick me for 6 months to be preferenced with. And if you like that, then you do another 6 months. If you don't think it's the best partnership for that, then just use me as one of your agents and go with another mother agency.
Yeah, I will say that Jeffrey is fabulous about not shotgun blasting his auditions out there. He knows his roster. He understands who's good at what and who has the highest chance of booking, and doesn't just blast it out to everybody the way a lot of other independent agents do. And I think that shows a lot of integrity and a lot of forethought on his part. So
thank you, Dan. That's what makes the partnership fun, is that if I seemingly am missing things that you feel like are out there that I've missed having you on, communicate it with me, because I might have sent your demo, or I might have missed something about you that I should know about.
Mm-hmm. Question. Let's see. I guess I'll segue to this. I've got two questions in my head. When someone is on your roster, how do you like to work with them? Like, do you like people to come in and say, okay, this is what I'm interested, like, this is what I want to accomplish in this time frame, and then sit down and say, okay, how are we going to do that?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think everyone should have some kind of general goal. I think everybody feels like, or should, by the time they get with an agent, is know what their vein of gold is. So they know that I have a gruff voice and I'm mostly going to get older, whatever it might be your case is. But I have a plan of action meeting sometimes with people that are that goal oriented, or want to just lay it out there and see how my response is to their goals. That solidifies the partnership, or it dissolves it. If I don't see your point in pushing one thing or another, or if I don't feel my agency is going to be putting you in front of that goal, just by nature of who my buyers are, then you'll know at least, okay, well, I'll try him. Doesn't sound like we're going to be able to do much together, but at least it's something. But yeah, I have someone who's really wants to do live announce, and she completely has it laid out how she wants to do it, and she asks, how can I help where will I be in that? And I say, hey, it's really picking up for me in this market for live announce, ironically. So this was a good time, you know.
Right.
Totally. I need to know what you want from me, from your career, from us, for sure.
Yeah. And then I think the more, I always think of it as like, the more you can bring little birds, right? Oh,
Yeah.
look, I got you a little bird.
That's what my cat does all the time.
And then also relationships, right? It's not just about the job. It's about, oh, maybe I book this job, but you don't have a relationship with this person, but I bring it to you. And then, then they know how awesome you are. And then that continues. So just thinking about how you can be bringing the little birds, and ideally the big birds, the big turkeys, to the table. Let's see, segue also to, can you talk a little bit about the alliance, the Agent Alliance, and how?
I love the VO Agent Alliance. It came about because our anthill was kicked by a certain entity. And that was part of the scatter for all of us trying to put their anthill back together. And it's for the agencies, but I mean, it's agencies for talent and the protection of the knowledge source of a lot of the standards. We're not able to collude. Of course, we wouldn't want to, and that's not our goal. Our goal is to stop abuses, or to stand up against abuses, to inform people when they might not know that they are taking in an abusive situation as far as rates or terms go. And the bottom line of the Alliance is a brilliant, they're worldwide, from New Zealand and from UK and all over the country. And they have one goal in mind, is to not let the erosion continue at this pace. And if we can do anything at all, even if it's just one person's job where we help control the terminology or the asks of certain talent seekers, if we can change verbiage that's not as taking of the talent's rights, we're finding that there's two, I think, forces at play. Those who are ill-informed or don't know they're expressing what they heard as a standard ask, in terms of like in perpetuity, or all cuts, all lifts, all versions thrown in, but no extra fee for you, or studio fees. Some of them don't know, and others are knowing what they're doing. And so we try to identify those and try to figure out how to convince them that there are standards that have been in play for 8 decades, and we would like to keep those standards, please. A lot of the erosion is because of just accidentally happening with people that are digitally in the world now, who are in charge of their own VO career from home or whatever it might be. That's great. Welcome to the party. However, you have to self-protect. And if you don't know, ask your agent or ask a forum, call them, a dojo. But the Alliance, to me, is a really proud moment in our industry, and I'm very proud to be a part of it. I think the people there are one goal in mind, that's to protect the talent in the industry.
Excellent. And it's such a lovely opposite of what the traditional Sharky agent sort of.
No, we're working together. It's amazing. I mean, I've always had that experience here in Atlanta. All the agents here pretty much are just buddies and friends and share talent and share opportunities, or, and that's how the Alliance is too. But you just have to step back and think about what's happening, is that we are allies and competitors, and it's symbiotic because our goal is in the right intention. We have good goals in mind.
Yeah, it shows, and you can feel it. Dan, I know you have to dash in before we finish. So there's a couple of equipment things.
Yeah, they're very similar questions, and I can probably answer them quickly. Laura Doman asks, Dan, what equipment should a voice actor have in the booth for professional quality besides mic, preamp, headset, script, stand, light? How important are having external speakers or multiple screens or other equipment? Well, you do have to have a guitar hanging on the wall and a nice couch, and no. It's really important to understand you're not building a recording studio. You're building a home voiceover studio. Nobody needs to see how the sausage is made. It's only how it sounds, and what works in your home is what's most important. So what quality is based on is the three things that I talk about, which is acoustics, sound coming in that you want to prevent, preventing reverberation. Number two, proper mic technique, which we discussed earlier. And three, setting proper levels. If you can master those three, sometimes with my assistance, or if you think you got it right, I'll be glad to listen to it. If you get those right, that's all that's important. You don't need a really expensive microphone. The more expensive the microphone, the harder it's going to be. I was talking to somebody last week who lives in an apartment in Lower Manhattan, and he was saying that it gets noisy at rush hour, and but I'm figuring with a better mic, maybe it'll just pick me up. And I said, no, you'll hear what the cab drivers are actually saying. So don't do that. So really, you don't need multiple screens. You don't need all of this stuff. It's not the technology that gets you the work. It's your ability to interpret the script in a way that someone's going to say, hey, I like that. And what you don't want is you don't want your audio to sound bad. And preventing that is pretty easy to do if you understand those basics. And then the other question was from Barbara Caseda. Question for Dan, that's me. Is there such a thing as, same thing, an ideal preamp for each specific mic? Or again, does this vary by voice, space, etc.? Specifically interested in a good, reasonably priced preamp for the Neumann TLM 103. Thank you. I use a preamp that's $149, and that's, people need to understand that ones and zeros are ones and zeros. That's what these preamp interfaces do. They take the analog signal from your microphone and turn it into the ones and zeros that your computer understands and can turn into the graphic representation of a waveform that you can now manipulate and edit. If you buy a really cheap one, the preamp in it may not be as good. But the ones made by Focusrite, Yamaha, Steinberg, they're all essentially the same, and they all essentially sound the same. You start going up to the more expensive stuff like the Apollos. People are buying those to get all these plugins so that they can play with their audio, and when you play with your audio, you tend to destroy your audio. If you don't know what something does, don't use it. And so a good one to use is that good old TLM 103, the Yamaha AG03 or AG06, the UR22 from Steinberg, and some people have been complaining about the ID4. The quality control on these things is usually pretty good. And if there's a problem, it's usually something elsewhere in your chain. So don't worry about it. If you have a TLM 103, a Focusrite 2i2, or even a Solo is plenty. It's not about making you sound great. It's making you sound like you. And those microphones, any microphone that's above $200 is going to do that.
Cool. And in terms of the external speakers, what the quality of how you're hearing is an important part of your chain, right? Oh,
absolutely. I mean, if you're in an enclosed studio that is fairly private, you should have good studio monitors which will deliver back exactly what you recorded, which is the most important thing, or a good pair of headphones like the Harlan Hogan Signature Series headphones. No plug there. Yeah. But if you use studio monitors, the room you're listening in, if it's different from your booth, also has to be acoustically treated. As you can see, there are panels here. So what you hear is not bouncing off a wall, and you're getting a false sense of exactly what is recorded. You want to hear it, close up, and you want to hear, through powerful studio monitors, exactly what you're putting out.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I noted in terms of multiple screens and stuff, I think that's just a matter of understanding your workflow.
Absolutely. And trying to pick the right software to use is really about what workflow works for you.
Yeah. And so what is the rhythm that you're creating? And if having something up visually here so you can do something up here makes your workflow go better, that's where it's important. It's not about the look of it. It's about what is your workflow and what is your system to get things done in the most efficient.
Absolutely. All right. I got to run. Great to see you, Jeffrey.
Great to see you, Dan.
Always a pleasure. Tish. All right. Take it easy.
Awesome. Great. Couple quick questions. Do you work with people internationally, specifically British? Margaret asks. And let's see if there's other questions that are, we did that one. So I guess that, and another like sort of, how does this whole thing work is, are there particular genres that are more prevalent? So let's do those in order. Oh wait, here's the other one. Do you get auditions for international audiences originating in Europe, Middle East, for example, that want American or Southern accents? So that's kind of the two sides of an international thing. Do you work with people internationally, and then are international clients looking for American voices?
Yeah, they're not looking for, well, yes, to all of that. I do. I do. Yeah, handle authentic, locally British talent for sure, and successfully. They're very, I guess, they're accustomed to the time change, the time zone change, and I've never had any issue with a talent not being available at a time that Americans are awake. So it's been really professional and nice to see that. So that takes that element of time issue out of it. And other than that, there's no reason really not to work with talent from there. I know there's a money exchange, but that's all set up and it's worked out. And it's just a fact of money. But that's not been a problem anytime. I don't have as many buyers in Europe looking to get American accents or American talent from here, but there's been some, and it's very specific when they do. And we've had some success, but not a ton. And when we do, we're paid electronically through the bank system instead of mail me a check type of thing. And exchange rate is worked out by the banks. And I do have talent all over. I have talent all over the world, and not necessarily sounding from that area. So there may be, let's say, Americans who are just living abroad for whatever reason in other regions. So for that reason, it's just a time zone difference, and that's not an issue. The commodity of the world in voiceover is if you are multilingual or have a native speaking language, and that to agents' ears or buyers' ears is very lucrative sounding, and it's something you want to work with for sure. So I'm always open to looking for someone who is bilingual or multilingual, or because it's a tool. It's a tool for all of us to enjoy, having access to.
One thing I've noticed in terms of like being an American who books British a lot, I remember having a discussion once with the booth engineer coming in as an authentic, it was a call for authentic Brits. And the lobby was full of lovely, authentic Brits. And I came in, I was like, I'm not authentic. I'm really from Chicago. I'm not authentically Brit. And he said, yeah, but they never book. I was like, what? He said, they don't understand the energy of the American market. So I think that's an interesting thing, whichever way you're approaching which way are you using your British accent, right? And I always use the example of if you listen to straight up BBC promos, or if you listen to BBC America promos, right?
Oh,
and
right.
BBC, just plain old BBC, or like, someone whispering in your ears about you go to sleep. Coming up next is something that's on next Tuesday, and my sister Gloria loved it last week, right? But it's just like really a different energy and a different thing. So just tuning into where those trends are in both markets is
I had not thought about it that way. Of course, I know the BBC way, but I haven't thought about how it differs from BBC America. That's very
like how are you aware of what or also I think in general with accents, like what is the idea of what is the idea of what a Brit sounds like, right?
I know. Yeah, that does depend on what the client, who they're wanting to reach as well. Much of the same way you would have a working class here. You want to they sound working class.
Right.
The same thing. I know there's different regions in Brit in British terms. So I guess that kind of plays into it. But yeah, I hadn't thought about that, the BBC America difference, but that's fascinating.
So we're narrowing down. We've got a couple more questions that I think can be grouped. Can you talk about the genre work in Atlanta? There's a specific question about the video game market, and are there any genres that are more prevalent?
For Atlanta, we have a heavy promo market.
All the network stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think with who we have here, it's helped us by that. I mean, I do a lot of promo work or get a lot of opportunities through the Turner system, like Turner Classic Movies or Cartoon Network. So the promo work is pretty prevalent, heavy here because of the studios that are here and their output needs. And video games are picking up here. For a while it was Telltale out of the Bay Area, and they were. I had kind of gone fishing for them, and at the same time, they were being open to other markets, and I successfully have had people on the Walking Dead game and games such as that were a little bit more high profile and fun to work on and meaty. We have about 500 to 1,000 game producers in Georgia, and ironically, we're not just. We're not bowled over by voice needs here, so it's a big thing we're trying to cash into. I don't know where they find their voices, and it's frustrating.
Say the numbers again.
What are the figures? 500 companies.
500 companies that are producing video games?
Yeah, video game producers, and they're centered in Georgia and the Georgia region. So I don't know why we're not a massive video market for that as well, but their method of finding voices is different than the commercial world. So I say the thing I can imagine. So it's incumbent upon each talent to make their way to conferences that are geared for that specific genre, because that's where you'll find people looking for voices. That's kind of probably where they're finding a lot of their voices is in person, or people that are around them in the game world, Yeah. I do love video games, and I think the opportunities we've had, even before it became completely digital, they were flying our talent out to the West Coast and putting them up in hotels so that they could do a video game, which was fascinating. It was odd to see. Right. That need is not quite there anymore. But yeah, I'm proud of what we've done so far, but I definitely want to be tapped into it more, and all my talent want to be. They really love that genre.
Yeah. How is your agency different than other agencies in Atlanta?
Well, mine's focused, completely on voiceover. There is another agency, Richard Hutchison Management, that is also centrally focused only on voiceover. So that alone, I guess, since I'm just voiceover, is the identifier between me and Richard and the rest of the agencies here. But pretty much all the full service agencies have a VO department, and we all sort of pull our resources together, or peer wise, we're very communicative with each other and helpful with each other. And if I'm on a panel, I'll invite other agencies to be on a panel with me, so we can kind of share our perspectives and come together. But really, I think that's the only thing that's different, is that it's just one guy, one agency, one genre, or one discipline, one field.
Yeah.
I'm looking into going into partnering with someone where it would be a full service agency. I would not handle the on-camera TV and film part. I would remain in voiceover. I'm a voiceover guy the rest of my life. But, I think to broaden the the service of Umberger Agency, that's looking at it right now with someone pretty seriously. So that might change things. You never know.
Sounds interesting. We've got like just a couple more minutes. I think this is something that's a great question to ask. If you haven't had previous representation, what's the best way to approach an agency? And I think that's also a question of like when and what are you looking for? Because I think in some way, well, I'll let you answer the question, but I think that's a really developmental question. Like when are you ready to approach someone about agency, or what do you look for?
it's hard to know yourself when you're ready, because everyone feels they're ready, maybe before someone else thinks they're ready. Having a good ear for what is booking, how you compare yourself with what you're hearing on the radio and TV, and how, it's hard to be honest with yourself and think, well, a lot of people say, I could do that. And can you really? And if you feel like you've done that in enough weekly workouts online in a group or with Dojo, and you get the feedback that is consistently, hey, you nailed it, or hey, I felt something with that, then it might be time to look at an agency as one way to find jobs. You should always be looking at an agency in tandem with what you're doing on your own to find your own work via LinkedIn or your own website or social media. So there's really no time that's too soon beyond. Once you're trained and once you have if you have a demo, even if you don't have a demo, if you have samples that are exhibit your ability to tell a story and communicate it well, it's really mostly making sure you're trained first. And you know what happens with jobs, not just training, can I act, but I know what gets me to the studio, or what's incumbent upon an actor to do and to know how to do it.
That you're ready to do.
Yeah, you're bringing a company to my company, and we're going to merge. So that's the thing: is your company just a front door to an open room full of hopes, or is your company full of desks, people working? And is it operating? So that's a good time to know if you're going to go to an agency, your company needs to be operating.
Yeah. Great way to articulate.
Yeah.
Hey, really super quick. I'm not sure why. But union, non-union. Someone else. Us. Because it's 11. Saying stop.
It's happening over there.
Okay, I think it's better now. Yeah. Okay. It's okay. Are you finding it beneficial to be Phicorp, being competitive in VO markets, particularly in Atlanta, I would say? Or what are you noticing?
I do have a fair amount of talent who say, I'm union, but I'm Phicorp now. That opens up, the opportunities for me to represent them. It opens them up for me to share more opportunities with them, because we're a right to work state. If I'm just taking Georgia opportunities, or around the country, I'm seeing a lot of union jobs pull away from the union status and going non-union. So hopefully that's just a trend too. I don't know. I'm not pro-union or non-union. I'm not either one, really. I think the protections the unions gives is great. And I love that people can exist also non-union and be responsible and kind of have the same protection. But as far as am I stopped as an actor from being union and deciding to go Phicorp? That's a very personal decision. I'm never involved in that decision with the actor. That is not part of the partnership, because that's, again, part of your company, and you decide whether to have cloth towels in your bathroom or paper towels. That's going to be your decision, and it's a very proud thing, I'm sure, for so many to get their union card, and it's probably very hard for them to pull out of their status. But just as the union wants, they want as many actors to work and make a living as possible, and I think that's one reason they have the Phicorp status set up. It's not a mystery that it exists, and so it's not accidental, and it is a decision. It's a business decision, but not one that I make. As far as who I represent, what your status is what you receive from me audition-wise. And so in Georgia, I get 70% non-union as compared to union opportunities, if that helps you understand what you would be from my Georgia work. Otherwise, nationwide, it was national, more, and now it's not as sure. So it's going to be union and national.
Excellent. Great. Video pros offer boost direction from auditions online. I think we can.
I didn't hear that. What is it? Do any of you that offer boost direction for auditions online? Oh, do any VO pros that offer boost direction for auditions online? That's excellent. I think it basically would be a coach.
Yeah, I'm always happy to help people who are up.
Yeah, and as an agent, I'm kind of the booth director post your recording, because when you send it to me and I listen to it, I will give you feedback if something needs to be adjusted. So I'm the booth director as well, so that handles that. I never let one go through if just because, oops, you missed it, or you might have read something odd in the specs, or maybe your sound needs to be tightened up, the space, the air, take the air out. Or maybe it was supposed to be a tail slate and it ended up being a front slate.
Right. Yeah.
I edit those when it's technical. I don't edit performances, but I edit if there's like a huge swatch of time at the end of this take for some reason. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, if you have a booth director, that's basically saying you're bringing along your coach with you to your audition, which your agent also should be doing their job in making sure your audition is its best before it gets ultimately sent on.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't charge for that.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, we're a little bit over time, but Jeffrey, thank you so much. Everybody, thank you so much for your questions. Are
these questions going to remain up here, or when we close, do they go away?
I have them in the back. I have them. They're filed.
Oh, good. Okay, good. I'd love to be able to respond to the people that have asked personal things or.
I can keep this up. What we'll do, we'll wrap up here. I'll just keep this on for a few more minutes and let you. We'll close the video. We'll close the mic, so it'll just be Jeffrey typing in the background. And if there's anything that I can chime in on, that'd be great. We do this call the first Wednesday of every month. So please put it on your calendar. If you're a working pro, check out the VO Dojo Pro Fight Clubs. We do them live in LA and virtually. We just had a great one with Audi Payton, animation director. You can also get recordings of them if there's someone that you haven't worked with. I'm available. We've got You Should Do voiceover if you're just starting out, coming up May 17, 18, 19 in LA. We work with people wherever you are. So here's a resource. Love having this time to answer your questions. Great questions, everyone. Jeffrey, thank you again so much.
Thank you for this forum. Thanks for letting me be a part of it again. It was fun. I want to do it in person in your studio one day.
Yeah, come on, man.
Awesome. Pull the country over this way a little bit.
When the pneumatic tubes are in place. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. We're going to sign off. Jeffrey's going to just pop little responses for just a few minutes, and then we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Feel better. Thanks, everybody.